magic of design education for everyone. I've come here today to tell you that I'm very excited about an idea. I believe that design is a natural, innate human ability, and I think it's waiting for release in virtually everyone. The exciting idea is that if we can educate nearly everyone in design thinking and design process, I think we really can change the world through design. The reason I use the term magic for this process relates to this definition. It's not the same kind of magic that you're going to see later on today. Every time I do one of my creativity design workshops, the results always seem to be magical. It is always delightful, it is wonderful, and always exciting. Over the past many years, I've done a lot of these design thinking workshops with a variety of groups, most of whom, the people in them, have little or no design background or training. They range from high school students to college students to business professionals that are from many disciplines. On every one of these workshops, we always have the participants build mock-ups. We basically have them do research and take them through a basic, simple three-part process. And after they research, they build mock-ups. Interesting, this lower left one from one of my great students is a wireless Bluetooth nose microphone. Probably wish I had one today because of all this stuff. One of the most inspiring workshops that I've ever done was with a group of learning disabled high school students at Thomas Alva Edison High School in Portland, Oregon. And all of these students were in a special class and had several learning disabilities or issues like Tourette's syndrome, ADD, dyslexia, reading difficulties, among others. And their teacher, whose name, by the way, was Bill Gates, was doing a great job teaching them science and technology with real hands-on projects. And he invited me to come in and do a one-day workshop for these students. And so I came in and we did 2 half-days because of their school schedule. We did an afternoon session, and then we did the next day a morning session. What was interesting is that after the first afternoon session with these high school students, Mr. Gates came up to me and he said, "Now, Bill, don't get your hopes too high about tomorrow morning. These students have a problem getting here on time. And so even though the class starts at about 8:15 a.m., they will probably trickle in between 8:30 and 9. So be patient. It'll take a little time to get started tomorrow." So I decided to come early anyway, and I showed up at the school about 8 a.m. But when I walked into the door and into the classroom, every single student was there, already aggressively working on the projects they had started the day before. Mr. Gates came up to me and he says, "I can't believe this. This has never happened before." All of these students came 30 minutes before class time. The room was such a buzz of noisy activity working on their projects, we had trouble calming them down for the next coaching session. Another interesting aspect was that there was one young man who just seemed to have real difficulty. He just wouldn't work with his assigned team. And he kept working off in the corner on one of his own projects. So the teacher came up and asked me again, "What are we going to do about this?" And I said, "Well, you know, there's always a maverick and a loner in the group. Let's just let him go and see what happens." Well, this young man, in the matter of these 2 half-day work sessions, designed and built a half-scale homeless shelter. The user could unfold it, unzip it, crawl inside, and sleep a good night protected from the Portland rain. And he could also read a book by flashlight, which this young man attached at one end of it. And he single-handedly designed and built this mock-up from plastic bags, cardboard, bent wire, and packaging and duct tape. So how do we educate almost everyone to be able to find human needs and then design and build mock-ups of these things when most people generally do not have a design background or any design training? Well, actually, as I said before, it seems to be a very magical thing when we apply a very simple three-part process. First, we give them an opportunity and an environment to find real human need and solve real human problems. Second, we provide them with tools and materials and processes and coaching to be able to make really real built solutions. And finally, third, at the end, we give them an exciting chance to do show and tell of what their creative results are. We usually give them a big bin or a bucket of simple tools and materials so they can easily and quickly build mock-ups. These include Legos, Tinker Toys, paper, cardboard, pieces of wood, parts of other toys, miscellaneous materials like clay and tape. One of the things that I have found is that we may have suppressed the artist and the drawing abilities of people in our heavily left-brained educational institutions. But one thing I found is that building and making things is still a very active and energetic human activity. For example, back in the high school workshop, we couldn't let these students out onto the Portland streets to do their discovery research like we usually do with more professional groups. So we decided to have them do their design research by interviewing their teacher, Mr. Gates. And so what they found by interviewing Mr. Gates were three things about him, things that bugged him. First, he had trouble getting up in the morning. Second, he hated waiting for hot water in his shower. And third, he was a hiker, and he disliked carrying heavy backpacks. So one of the teams first decided they would design the concept for electric pajamas for Mr. Gates. But they abandoned that idea rather quickly because they were afraid they might electrocute their teacher. So their final solution was to design a vibrating bed that would not stop shaking until Mr. Gates actually got out of bed and stepped on the floor. Another team, answering Mr. Gates' need for not carrying a backpack, designed a mobile backpack on traction treads for rough terrain that would follow him. He had a remote control, and it would follow him and sense his movements in terms of speed and position, so he wouldn't have to carry his heavy gear behind him. At the end of all this, we had all of the teams of these high school folks present verbally and physically their mock-ups and their solutions. You can see here that this is the group that did the instant hot water shower. And even though I can't, as you might understand, identify them, you can see by their smiles and their body language that it was a great experience for them, and we all had a lot of fun doing this and coming up with some interesting ideas. In another two-day workshop I did with a major company in Korea, we had a broad cross-section of participants, and as you can see, we had adult businessmen sitting on the floor using toys to build their design solutions that they developed during the workshop. At the end of this workshop, we asked all of the participants to tell us what they thought of the workshop and how they felt about this experience. We had one woman who was from corporate finance and was an accountant, and she said she was absolutely terrified when she was told by her boss that she would have to go to this workshop. She had no experience in design, she couldn't draw, she couldn't sketch, she had no training, and she really didn't want to go. But she came anyway, and after the workshop was over, she told us that this experience was so powerful for her, and she felt so confident that it literally changed her life. Another gentleman in our group was a trained industrial designer. And so he told us that he already knew most of these processes ahead of time from his design education. But interestingly, he had never had to actually go out and find a need or a problem on his own. He was always told what to do and what to design. So even this experience for him was a great thing to experience his own need finding and idea ownership. At my school, I teach a foundation basic product design class to about 25 or 26 graduate students who have little or no background in design education. They come from psychology, education, business, economics, and sculpture. And so my job in one short term is to give them an overview of design thinking and design process so that in the future in their master's program they can do more advanced work. The second project that they're actually still working on probably this weekend was to go out and find a site or a location around our school that was related to construction or maintenance. And their goal was to interview the workers and observe them and watch them and find out if there are any new innovations in tools and or processes that might improve their work or make their life easier. What they came back with were some really fascinating, great results. I often hear the question, can design really change the world? And I think that's exactly what will happen if we empower people to design for other people's needs. I'm going to tell you one more story about my basic foundation class project and one of the teams. One of the teams in my foundation class came to me and asked if they could interview and research the cleaning crew, the cleaning ladies and women who did the janitorial and take out the trash and clean the restrooms in our school. And at first I was hesitant because I thought that it may not be enough of a challenge for them. But then I relented and said, okay, it was maintenance. So this team of 4, to my surprise, came back with some really interesting and important needs and problems that these hard-working women had every single day they worked at our building. In their need-finding research with these women, in which they observed those of it because the system just didn't work. So this team is now redesigning the recycle and trash bins and the process so that this doesn't happen and their life is easier, so that they don't have essentially double workload in resorting everything and redoing all of the trash. The second problem they found was these women had no real dedicated place to rest or take a break. And in fact, they had confiscated a little closet that was used for some of the air duct management and made a little place for them to rest in there. And that's what my students found. So they're working with them to redesign a space for them to actually take breaks and to rest and to actually have a rotating rest schedule. And they're also designing some furniture for them to go into this space so they can relax from their hard work. The third thing they found was that basically the way these women were doing their workflow was quite inefficient. They all did all of the same jobs on every floor every day. And it was really quite inefficient. And so they did a workflow analysis and a scheduling analysis for these women in which they are now dividing up the tasks, cleaning the bathroom, taking the trash out, mopping the floors, in a more efficient way so that they have better workload, better scheduling, and, frankly, an easier life. And finally, these students thought, well, you know, if the student body knew more about these women and their problems and their needs and how hard they work for us, maybe things would even be better. And so this team is designing now an awareness program of messages and events and posters to bring and raise the student body sensitivity to these women. So, to me, this kind of process and this kind of results is what gives design its great potential and opportunity and power. Using design as the real action result of caring for other people. Thank you very much.